Hey everyone, Rob Janicki here, author of Slacker 1991, Teen Spirit Angst and the Generation It Created. It is September 24th, 2024. I haven't made a video in a while. I've been working on stuff with the book, news on that soon. This is a very significant date in music history, and it's a good time to come back onto YouTube and talk about it. So September 24th, 2024, why is that important? It's important because it is the 33rd anniversary of Nirvana's release of Nevermind, which came out on this date in 1991. There has been articles, documentaries, books, including mine, that talk about this record in great detail. My book talks about the entire scene pre and post Nirvana, but I wanted to make a video about this now because I can't believe 33 years have passed. It seems impossible that that's the case, but it is. 33 years ago, I was a freshman in college, and in September of my freshman year, the beginning of school. I probably started in August, come to think of it. Things in the music world were very, very different. I talk about in the book what happened prior, and I'll just give you a little bit of a clue. If you listen to Top 40 radio, if you watched MTV back then, if you went to record stores and saw the top selling albums, just to give you an idea on this week in 1991. So the Billboard charts, the Hot 100, which is singles charts. September 21st, 1991. The top 10 read as follows. Color Me Bad, Marky Mark and the Funky Bunch, Boys to Men, CNC Music Factory, Paula Abdul, Bryan Adams, Michael Bolton, Kathy Dennis, Firehouse, and Rod Stewart. Depending on how old you are and how much you paid attention to music back then, that list was about to be destroyed. When Nevermind came out on September 24th in 1991, and then prior to the album's release, Smells Like Teen Spirit had been released as a single. The video was out relatively soon after, and the video was what really launched it. And radio play, it was kind of going back and forth, but when the video came out, that was it. This list, essentially, for all intents and purposes, disappeared. By January 11th, 1992, just a few short months after Nevermind came out, Smells Like Teen Spirit was number 6 on that same Hot 100 chart. Number 6 prior to that was Bryan Adams, sandwiched between Paula Abdul and Michael Bolton. And on January 11th, 1992, Nevermind reached number 1 on the Hot 200, or not the Hot, but the Billboard 200, the album charts. And it knocked Michael Jackson's Dangerous off the chart. And that created the scene that we know as grunge and alternative. And it was my generation's Beatlemania, if you will. I wasn't alive for what happened in the 60s, but all the research and reading and just knowing my history, there was a massive sea change and this wave of culture and music with the British invasion, and the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, the Who, Pink Floyd, and so on. Everything changed. And until 1991, you had the flower power movement in the late 60s, early 70s. You had disco, you had punk rock, you had new wave. But nothing sustained, nothing changed culture globally or for a long period of time until 1991, until Nirvana. And then the floodgates opened, and Pearl Jam and Soundgarden and Alice in Chains and all the bands. A lot of those bands started before. As a matter of fact, Pearl Jam didn't, but Pearl Jam is the sum of parts from other bands that started long before Nirvana. My point is, Nirvana didn't start this, but Nevermind, the release of Nevermind, commercially and culturally was the starting point. Wasn't the first band, was not the first to write this kind of music. I mean, Nirvana, if you really listen to what Nevermind is, it is a loud punk rock record, melodic, catchy. There were fans of bands like the Beatles, like ABBA, and plenty of punk rock bands, and it just kind of fused. But the timing, the culture, the look, the attitude, where the world was at the time in the late 80s, early 90s, this was all a huge component of why Nevermind blew up the way it did. And look, it was on the charts for, just under, I think, 600 weeks. It sold currently over 30 million albums, and that number keeps going up. Rolling Stone listed Nevermind as the 6th best album of all time. This doesn't just happen to bands or for bands randomly, without reason. It was, and it is, meaning Nevermind, one of the most important records of all time in American and global music history. It just is. Now, musical tastes are subjective. You don't have to like Nirvana. You don't have to like hard rock. You don't have to like punk. You don't have to like grunge, alternative, whatever you want to call it. You don't have to like it. There's musical genres out there that I'm not all that fond of. But I can recognize the importance of some of the biggest moments in those genres' history. And that has to be done now for Nirvana and for what happened in the early 90s. You have to recognize its importance, its influence, culturally and musically, socially. They're still influencing people today. Kurt died in 1994. It's sort of amazing and shocking to know that that is still happening, meaning the influence. So again, yeah, you don't have to like it. Maybe it's not your cup of tea. Maybe you're, into heavy metal. Maybe you're into, hard rock, hip hop, country, pop, jazz, dance, electro, whatever. I mean, you name it. We all love different styles of music. But Nirvana's importance, particularly with Nevermind, was and is something that is just, it's indisputable. And it's fun to look back, I think, as we all get older. And maybe some of you watching this are 17, 18, 19 years old right now, like I was when Nevermind came out. Maybe you don't know the history. Maybe you don't know, or maybe you haven't even witnessed, you probably haven't witnessed anything. You certainly haven't witnessed anything as big as this in terms of like where everybody experienced it at the same time. We lived in a monoculture back then. This was pre-digital, pre-streaming, pre-YouTube, pre-TikTok, pre-internet, essentially. I mean, the internet existed, but it was essentially email. It's hard. That's why I wrote the book. It's one of the reasons I wrote the book. I wanted to document what happened, not just musically, but culturally, why the shift was so big and so important. I've never seen anything like it before. I certainly haven't seen anything like it since. Now, we don't live in a monoculture anymore. We're not experiencing the same things all at the same time. Things come and go now a lot quicker than they used to. We have many more options of where to find music and entertainment, and how to view it, how to consume it, how to listen to it, where to listen to it. Everything's changed. Everything has changed. But I'm lucky, we're lucky if you're a Gen Xer like I am. And I think I was at the perfect age, in 91. September of 91, I was 17 years old. And I guess it allowed me to see everything that had come before, musically, culturally, the way we all consumed what we liked. Live through that, watch it die, essentially, in the late 90s. watch everything change, experience that, the digital age, learn how to navigate through that, still go back to the old days for what I really like the most, and then see the comparisons and understand that, in my opinion, and I don't think this opinion has been proven wrong yet. I don't think it's possible for a band like Nirvana to happen again. The organic nature in which they happened, the organic nature in which that scene, that Seattle scene that started in the early 80s happened. The culture that we live in is just, it's too different. I don't know that a single band can take over the world and where the focus, I mean, you have bands that will sell, you have bands that will be monstrously popular, single artists more so than bands these days. Taylor Swift, Billie Eilish, Bad Bunny, Post Malone, I mean, you name it. But we're not all focused. And when I say all, I mean the majority of the culture at that moment. We just don't have, we have too many options now. We don't have to watch MTV. MTV doesn't play videos anymore anyway, but if they did, that isn't the only way we would get music videos. Radio is almost non-existent. It is a completely different scenario now of how we find things. So yeah, I'm gonna stand by that, and I don't think a phenomenon like Nirvana, like early '90s Seattle, the grunge and alternative movement, will ever happen again on that level with the legs that it's had. I mean, look, it's still going strong now. I have kids in grammar school and middle school, and I pick them up and they're wearing Nirvana t-shirts. I know you'll say, oh, it's a fashion statement and whatnot, but that's what leads to eventually listening. You know, you think everybody who wears a Kiss t-shirt or a Misfits t-shirt or the tongue logo from the Rolling Stones or a Beatles shirt, you think they're all fans? They're not. You know, all of that has been sort of co-opted by marketing. And I can say, though, that a lot of the time where people wear something, a band name, band logo, eventually they get into it, or at least they're introduced to it, and then it's up to them whether they like it or not. And it continues. There's a reason why there's a handful of bands, and I just named a few of them, that have been around since their own inception and will probably never go away from culture. Nirvana is one of those bands. They have been since they started, and they will be forever. So that's the significance of September 24th, 1991, September 24th, 2024. Quick update on Slacker 1991, Teen Spirit, Angst, and the Generation It Created. It is finished. It's been finished. They're working on the printing, the creating of the actual book, you know, pages, spacing, the look of it, the feel of it, and the printing of it. And the first release date will be announced soon. It will be later this year. And the people who will get it first before it goes to stores are the people who've already pre-ordered it. You can still pre-order the book. There's a link in the comments for you to do so. You will get a signed first edition copy if you do that. Otherwise, your first opportunity to buy it will be once it hits stores soon after the initial pre-sale release. Thanks, and see you soon.